Deep in one of the largest and richest cities in China, a tailor named Mustafa lived. Mustafa was very poor and could barely take care of his wife and son. Mustafa's son's name was Aladdin. Aladdin was a problem and a handful. He was very careless and did little to no work. He would leave the house early in the morning and stay in the city and play with other children. His parents decided that he was old enough to learn how to work and make money. Mustafa took his son and tried to teach him how to be a tailor like himself. Mustafa tried for days to teach his son. Every time Mustafa looked away, Aladdin would take off and run back to the city to play with the other children. Day after day this happened until Mustafa finally gave up. This still bothered Mustafa, and because of this he grew stressed, then sick, and a few months later he died. Without his father, Aladdin took to the streets even more. He was never away from his friends and rarely came home. One day, while Aladdin was playing in the streets, a stranger stood and watched them. This was no ordinary stranger, however. He was a sorcerer. People referred to him as the African magician. As the sorcerer watched Aladdin, he grew pleased. He knew that Aladdin was the one to help him with his goal. The sorcerer went up to Aladdin and asked him if his father was indeed Mustafa. Aladdin replied that it was indeed his father, but he also told him that he had been dead for a while. When the sorcerer heard this, he threw his hands around Aladdin and pretended to cry. He told Aladdin that he, the sorcerer, was his uncle, Mustafa's brother. With that, the sorcerer gave Aladdin a handful of coins and told him to go to give it to his mother and to tell her that he would be visiting the next day. Aladdin was very happy with all this money. He ran home to give it to his mother. Aladdin told the whole story to his mother. His mother, however, told him that his father had no brother, and that he, Aladdin, did not have an uncle. Aladdin was playing outside the next day, and again the sorcerer found him. This time the sorcerer went right up to him and gave him 2 coins, and told him to give it to his mother so she could prepare a meal. The sorcerer told Aladdin that he would be visiting them tonight for dinner. Then the sorcerer asked Aladdin to show him what house he lived in, so he could find his way there for dinner. Aladdin showed the sorcerer his house, and the sorcerer left. Then Aladdin went to his mother and gave her the coins, and told her that the uncle would be coming for dinner. Aladdin's mother went to work, preparing dinner. Just when Aladdin's mother was finished, a knock came from the door. It was the sorcerer holding fruits and wine. Once the sorcerer set everything down. He had asked Aladdin's mother where Mustafa used to sit on the sofa. The mother showed him, and when she did, the sorcerer fell to the ground and kissed the spot several times, the whole time with tears in his eyes, saying how he was sorry that he was not able to come before Mustafa had died. The mother told him to sit there, but the sorcerer refused. He didn't want to sit in the same place where the master of the house sat. During the dinner, he talked to Aladdin's mother. He told her not to be surprised that she didn't know him. The sorcerer told her that he had been gone from this country for 40 years, and that during that time he had been traveling through Persia, Arabia, Syria, Egypt, and finally deep within Africa. Aladdin's mother began to cry as she remembered her husband, and that's when the sorcerer took it to start a conversation with Aladdin. The sorcerer asked Aladdin what he did for work. Aladdin was ashamed, and his mother told the sorcerer that Aladdin did not work and only played in the city. The mother told the sorcerer that Mustafa tried to teach Aladdin, but Aladdin never listened. She then said if Aladdin continued in his ways, that she would have no choice but to force him out of the house for good. This final statement made her cry even more. The sorcerer turned to Aladdin and told him that Aladdin himself must take care of himself, that he must get a livelihood. He may not like his father's trade, but there are other jobs out there. The sorcerer then told Aladdin that he would create a shop with the finest of things, and it would be Aladdin's job to sell them. Aladdin liked this idea because he thought it would be easy work, so he agreed to it. Aladdin thanked the sorcerer for his kindness, and the sorcerer told him that he would come back tomorrow in order to get Aladdin new clothes, and they would set up a shop. After hearing all of this, Aladdin's mother was sure that the sorcerer was indeed Aladdin's uncle. With that, the dinner was over, and the sorcerer left the house. The next day the sorcerer came to Aladdin's house and took him shopping. After Aladdin was newly dressed, the sorcerer took him to the mosque and inn, and then to the Sultan's palace. They traveled until nightfall. The sorcerer then took Aladdin home, and when his mother saw how much Aladdin had changed, she was so happy that she began to cry. The next day the sorcerer came to Aladdin's home. This time the sorcerer took him to the country. They went from palace to palace and explored the public gardens. At each palace, the sorcerer asked Aladdin if he thought this was a grand palace. Each time Aladdin would respond, saying it was the most beautiful place he had ever seen. Each palace looked better than the last. The sorcerer had a plan, and he needed to take Aladdin deeper into the country. They took a small break where the sorcerer pulled out some food, and together they had lunch. Once they were finished, they continued on through the country until they made it into the mountains. In the mountain, the sorcerer told Aladdin that he must find dry sticks and logs. Once Aladdin brought it all back, the sorcerer created the fire. The sorcerer placed incense and started to speak several magical spells that Aladdin could not understand. Then all of a sudden the earth opened up, and a stone with a brass ring was revealed. Aladdin was so frightened that he began to run away, but the sorcerer grabbed him and hit him on the ear. The sorcerer told Aladdin that he was his uncle and took the place of his father, and that he would be telling Aladdin what to do. Then the sorcerer told Aladdin that there was a small task he had to do, but he had to do exactly as he said. The sorcerer explained that only Aladdin was permitted in the stone doorway. If Aladdin did what he was told, he would have the riches beyond his wildest dreams. Aladdin liked what he heard and told the sorcerer to tell him what he had to do. The sorcerer told Aladdin that he had to take the brass ring and open the stone door. Then the sorcerer gave Aladdin his ring. Aladdin didn't believe that he was strong enough to move the door, but the sorcerer told him that he alone had to accomplish these tasks. With that, Aladdin reached for the brass ring and pulled on it. To Aladdin's surprise, the door opened with ease, and then it was revealed that there was a staircase going deep into the mountains. The sorcerer then gave Aladdin new instructions. The sorcerer told him that he had to walk down to the first room. He would have to walk through it without touching the walls. If he touched the walls, then he would die instantly. Then he would come to a second room, filled with a fruit tree. Then he would enter a third room, and in this room there would be a pedestal. On this pedestal there would be a lit lamp. He was to remove the lamp and blow out the flame, then dump the fluid out of the lamp. Then bring the lamp back through the 3 rooms and come back to the sorcerer. Aladdin understood and followed all these steps. Just when Aladdin was about to leave, he saw that the fruit tree was not filled with fruit, but the tree was filled with diamonds, jewels, and sapphires. Aladdin took as many as he could to give to the sorcerer. He did not know the value of these stones. Aladdin, filled with jewels and the lamp, climbed back up the stairs to leave the mountain. However, Aladdin could not get through the doorway, so he asked for the sorcerer's help. The sorcerer insisted on having Aladdin give him the lamp first. Then he would help Aladdin out of the doorway. Aladdin could not reach the lamp with everything he was carrying, so he told the sorcerer to help him through the doorway. Then he would give the sorcerer the lamp. Upon hearing this, the sorcerer became angry and added more incense to the fire and muttered 2 spells. And with that, the passageway closed, and Aladdin was trapped in the mountain. In this action, Aladdin knew that the sorcerer was not his uncle, and it was all a lie. The sorcerer had been studying the tales of the lamp, and learned that the lamp could only be removed by someone who was innocent. Then the lamp could only transfer ownership if that person gave the lamp freely. When Aladdin told the sorcerer no, the sorcerer knew that the lamp could not be given to him. So with that the sorcerer left Aladdin inside the mountain. This being the whole reason the sorcerer came to China, took his things, and traveled back to Africa. Aladdin, stuck inside the mountain, was upset and fearful. He knew that he would die in the mountain. He went back to the room with the walls that when touched would kill. Aladdin prayed for a quick death and put his hands together, and then a genie erupted from the ring the sorcerer gave him. The genie told Aladdin that he would serve anyone who possessed the ring, and would grant them a wish. Aladdin, having been so afraid, could not feel any worse, so he was not afraid of this genie of the ring. Aladdin cried that he would like to be home with his mother. Instantly after saying this, Aladdin was in his home, and his mother came to him crying. She thought she would never see him again. Aladdin told his mother the whole story, and how the uncle was really an evil sorcerer, and how he was stuck in a cave. Aladdin was so hungry and tired that he ate all the food in the home, and then fell asleep. The next day Aladdin woke up and was still starving. He went to his mother and asked for breakfast. His mother told him that there was no more food in the house, and that he ate it all the night before. Then the mother told him that she would go to the market and sell some cotton. Then they would have enough to buy some food. Aladdin told her to save her cotton, and that he would sell the lamp he had brought back. Aladdin's mother found the lamp, and told Aladdin that it was very dirty, and that she would clean it. She began to clean it with water and a cloth, and that's when the genie erupted from the lamp. Aladdin's mother fainted at the sight of the genie, but Aladdin, familiar with the genies, grabbed the lamp from his mother and told the genie that he was hungry and he wanted some food. The genie disappeared and then came back with silver trays filled with the most delicious of food. The genie set the food down and disappeared. Then Aladdin's mother woke up from her fainting spell. Aladdin showed her the food and told her that together they would eat until they were full. Aladdin's mother wanted to know where the food came from. They had so much she thought it might be a gift from the Sultan. When they finished breakfast, they saved the food for dinner. When they finished dinner, they realized that they still had food for at least 2 more days. Aladdin told his mother that it was the genie that had brought them all this food on these silver platters. When the mother heard all this, she demanded that they sell the lamp. She worried that the genie would be a spirit of evil, and that she wanted nothing to do with it. Aladdin told her that if the sorcerer wanted it so badly, and if it wasn't for the genie he'd be stuck inside the mountain, that it could not be all bad. Aladdin told his mother that they could have use for the genie, and it could make their lives better. He convinced his mother to let him keep the lamp and the genie, but the mother told Aladdin that she never wanted to see the lamp again. 2 days later, after they finished all the food that the genie had brought them, Aladdin was worried where their next meal would come from. Aladdin took one of the silver platters and went to the city into the shops. He took it to a merchant and told the merchant that he wished to sell the silver platter. The merchant, seeing that it was the best quality of silver, asked Aladdin how much he wanted for it, and Aladdin told the merchant that he would trust his judgment. The merchant knew that this meant Aladdin did not know the true value of the platter, so the merchant gave Aladdin a gold coin, which was only 1/16 of the value of the platter, and Aladdin took it happily. Aladdin would repeat this mistake with all the rest of the platters the genie brought. 18 times Aladdin brought the silver platters to the merchant, and each time the merchant would only give a fraction of the value. This continued until Aladdin ran out of silver to sell. Aladdin then called the genie and asked him to deliver food to their home. The genie was off in a second and then came back, filled with silver trays of food. Aladdin and his mother ate the food off the plates, and then he went to sell the silver platter. While Aladdin was walking to the merchant, he passed a goldsmith's stand. The goldsmith called Aladdin and told him that he often sees Aladdin go to the merchant to sell his silver. Then the goldsmith warned Aladdin that that merchant was one of the worst swindlers of all the merchants. The goldsmith then told Aladdin that he would give him the actual value of the silver, and if the goldsmith could not afford it, then he would send Aladdin to another shop that could. Aladdin then showed the silver platter to the goldsmith, who took it and weighed it. The goldsmith told Aladdin that it was the finest silver he had ever seen, and that it was worth at least 60 gold coins. The goldsmith told Aladdin that he would pay him immediately if Aladdin would let him buy this silver. Aladdin agreed, and from now on, he only sold his silver to the goldsmith. As time went on, Aladdin would study the world around him. He spent time learning and trying to better himself. One day, while Aladdin was walking through the shops, the royal guard came through, telling the shops to close their windows and to stay inside. The princess was going to the baths, and nobody was to look on her. Aladdin very much wanted to see the princess, so he decided to go hide in the bath building. Once he was hidden, the princess came in. She was surrounded by a crowd of ladies, slaves, and mutes that walked all around her. Once the princess walked past Aladdin's hiding place, she took off her veil, and Aladdin saw the beauty of the princess. Aladdin was enchanted, and once the princess went to the next room with the baths, he left his hiding place and went home. Aladdin went home and told his mother how much he loved the princess, and his mother listened. Then Aladdin told his mother that he would ask the Sultan if he could marry the princess. When his mother heard this, she laughed and told Aladdin that there was no way the Sultan would allow him, Aladdin, to marry his daughter. But Aladdin was determined. Aladdin came up with a plan. Now knowing the true value of the jewels and diamonds and stones that came from the tree in the mountain, Aladdin asked his mother for the nicest dish, and they spent their time arranging the jewels to look as beautiful as possible. These jewels' value was beyond anything in the whole city. Aladdin then told his mother that she must go on to the Sultan and present these jewels in exchange for his daughter. The next day Aladdin's mother went into the palace and sat at court. The Sultan sat and listened to the people of his city for most of the day before retiring and returning to his home. Aladdin's mother was not able to get a word to the Sultan the whole time. For 3 days Aladdin's mother went to court, and each time the Sultan retired before it was her time to speak. On the 4th day, the Sultan, seeing Aladdin's mother return to court, asked her what matters she wished to speak of. She told the Sultan that her son wished to marry the princess, and that these jewels were a token of his devotion, and to take them as an example of his love. The Sultan took the jewels and looked at them. The Sultan knew that the value of these stones were beyond compare. The Sultan beckoned to his advisors, and they all looked upon the jewels. The Sultan told Aladdin's mother that the jewels were worth his daughter's hand in marriage, but his daughter was promised to one of his advisors. The Sultan told the advisor that he had 3 months to prepare a response to this, or Aladdin would marry his daughter. 3 months passed, and Aladdin heard no response from the Sultan. Aladdin's mother was in the shops where she heard that there was to be a royal wedding, and that the princess would marry the advisor's son. Aladdin's mother ran home and told Aladdin the news. Aladdin, horrified, ran to the lamp and called the genie. Aladdin told the genie to take him to the princess's chamber. Aladdin was instantly transported to the princess's room, which was empty. There he waited. The party of the wedding announcement continued until nightfall, and that's when the princess came back to her room. There she found Aladdin, who told her not to worry. They sat and talked all night. Aladdin told her how her father promised her to him in marriage, and then they talked of a great deal of things. Then, once the sun rose, Aladdin called the genie, and Aladdin returned home. The Sultan could see that his daughter was very unhappy with the idea of marrying the advisor's son. The advisor's son had a reputation for being very controlling and mean-spirited, so the Sultan decided to call off the wedding. The next day, the Sultan returned to court. There waiting for him was Aladdin's mother. The Sultan asked her why she had come to him, and she told him that he had promised his daughter to her son Aladdin. The Sultan, remembering this, talked to his advisors. When they were done, the Sultan turned to Aladdin's mother and told her that Aladdin would have to supply 40 slave men carrying 40 trays of gold and jewels, as the same quality as the jewels she brought him. He then said, in addition to this, Aladdin would have to bring another 40 slave women, dressed in the finest of clothes. The Sultan told Aladdin's mother that he expected Aladdin's response immediately. She told them that they would have their answer soon. Aladdin's mother did not believe that there was any way for his son to produce all the Sultan asked for. When she made it home and told Aladdin what was expected of him, Aladdin was not worried. Aladdin went to his room and took the lamp. He told the genie all that he required by morning before court. The genie understood and disappeared. The next day there were 80 slaves outside the door, the men all carrying trays of gold and jewels. Aladdin's mother went to the front of the line and guided them to the Sultan's court. The Sultan saw all of this in awe. Once the slaves placed all the gold and jewels, Aladdin's mother went to the Sultan and asked for the marriage of her son and his daughter. The Sultan agreed and told her that they must hurry because he was looking forward to meeting Aladdin and welcoming him to his family. Aladdin's mother returned home and told Aladdin the good news. Aladdin then turned and told the genie that he needed the best robes and 4 slaves and the best horse in the country. The genie returned with all of this and helped Aladdin get dressed. Aladdin gave the 4 slaves baskets full of money and told them to throw coins onto the crowd as they made their way to the Sultan. Aladdin and the group traveled to the city, spreading money to everyone they passed. Once Aladdin reached the Sultan, he was received with open arms. The Sultan thought that Aladdin was even more noble than he imagined. Aladdin and the Sultan talked and they ate all day, and once the day was over, the Sultan had his advisors draw up a wedding contract. Aladdin told the Sultan that he would sign it, but first he must build a palace large enough and worthy of his daughter, the princess. The Sultan said that he would give him the land next to his own palace so they could be neighbors. Aladdin returned home and told the genie that they must build a palace filled with shops, gardens, a treasury, and stables. Overnight the genie worked, and at sunrise, next to the Sultan's palace, stood a new, even better palace. Now that the palace was complete, Aladdin signed the marriage contract, and that night the wedding began. The princess was overjoyed with the marriage to Aladdin, and the marriage celebration lasted all night. They were surrounded by the best food and drink. Once they were finished eating, they viewed performance after performance of traditional dance and music. Finally, Aladdin, his mother, the Sultan, and the princess were happy.